Morning, Duncan.
Morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm good. I want to thank you ahead of time for the opportunity to get an interview with you with regards to this Forestfield and its history, how it came about, and your involvement in it. But let's start out with what is your background as far as the aviation end of things here?
I grew up on a farm, so I was born on a farm. My father was an aviator, so all my life there's been aircraft on the farm. And so my father flew basically to utilise as a tool for the farm. And he used it to check water, to check stock. And so as kids, we used to, the five of us, we used to take it in turns to go with him around the stock and all that. And the interest grew. And later on, my mother flew, she did it. And then my elder brother, who since died since then. But so it's always been the family, really.
And what kind of aircraft were we talking about?
It was a Piper Cub initially, a three-seater Piper Cub. Beautiful airplane. He kept it immaculate, and it was his pride and joy. I never actually flew that one. He tried to give up 3 times, I think. First time he tried to give up, he couldn't. He went back and bought a Cherokee, a 140, and when I was about 15, I was learning to fly at that stage. And the 140 was great. It just meant that he didn't have to be quite so current, he wasn't flying as much. We still use it as a farm vehicle. And eventually I tried to give that one up, sold it. About a year later, bought another Cherokee. And I went shares in him with that one. And so I must have been 18 or so then.
So at what point did you get your pilot's license then?
At 17.
17.
Yeah, 17th birthday basically.
Wow.
So sold out at 15.
Excellent.
17, used to bunk school to go to lessons. Flying was always the thing. I thought I was going to be an ag pilot. That was my dream, was to fly fertiliser on farms. And I sort of came home and said to Dad that I'd be keen to. I went up with a top dressing pilot or an ag pilot or crop duster pilot, you'd call them probably,
right.
For an afternoon, and decided I'd start doing that. You start off as a loader driver, learning the whole, what happens, the weather, the products, the loading, the flight following, everything, to keep, because you're the only one there to keep the pilot safe. There's just the two of you. If something goes wrong, it's you. And anyway, Dad said, yeah, fine, go do your top dressing and do your commercial licence and all that, but don't expect to farm if you're going to do that. And I sort of thought about it, and I thought, oh no, my career in farming, I love farming too, so I took to farming. But later in life, I've actually become, been involved in the top dressing industry as loading. I never did it commercially, I never flew commercially, but I've really enjoyed learning from these commercial guys in the loading, just later in life, yeah.
Now that loading aspect of that is, I would imagine that your CG for your airplane is pretty critical with that. Because it's a liquid, right? You're mixing powder with a liquid in order to...
Generally ours are solid, so either lime or superphosphate dry form, and it sits basically on the CFG of the aeroplane. The aircraft that we've been using is a Cresco turbine, 750 horsepower, a payload of 2 tonnes.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, it's incredibly efficient. The aeroplane's 1650 kilos. And it's carrying, basically all that weight's 4 tonnes, so it's carrying a lot more than its own weight. And these boys that do it, I read I have a lot of admiration for them. They're taking off and landing every 5-6 minutes, 2 tonnes at a time. They do that day after day, and And our job is just to keep them in the air, on the ground, is to keep the phosphate, make sure the phosphate's there, make sure it's in lime or whatever product they're using. And as soon as they land, it's probably around about 60 seconds from the time they touch down to they take off with their load.
Wow.
So it's just to keep that momentum going.
It's like a pit stop in an F1 series.
Yeah, it is basically. Yeah, you did right. Yeah, they just turn, open the hatch, you drop it in, and they're off. And yeah.
So then you mentioned that your mother was flying too. What did she fly?
She flew the Cub. So Dad was incredibly. She was a terrible driver, but she was actually quite a good pilot. So Dad, there were 5 of us. Last lot were twins, and I think it was just to give us something else to think about. There was on the farm. There's a lot of support that these girls give. Sharing time, maintaining time, and things like that. Sort of food that they supply and help out, and do all sorts of jobs to help make the farm run. And I think Dad just felt as if she deserved.
Okay, moving from your family history in aviation to where you're at currently here in Forestfield. And if we could talk a little bit about how that development came about.
Yeah, well, I was farming away from really since I left school, or even during the school holidays. We became very heavily involved, family farm, children, did a lot on the farm. I sort of left school and did an exchange to the UK for a bit, for a year, came back home on the farm, and then did a dairy stint to learn about dairying, came back to the farm. And eventually my brother and I took it on, along with our wives. So we were farming away there on the farm, which ended up growing, and I loved the day-to-day operation of the farm, but it sort of consumed me in a way. 5 children, none of them were indicating that they'd like to really go back onto the farm at the time. And they're quite practical, the children. They started their own businesses. The eldest one, engineer. Next one was refrigeration engineering. Another one was a mechanical engineer. And I didn't have time to support them really, and I would love to have sort of had this dream of, as the kids get older, being able to help them in their businesses, what they do. So we made the call to put a manager on the farm and move off and become passive on the farm. Still involved, still own it and own to it, which we did, and it was at that stage that we came down here. We looked for properties, but Forestfield came up, and Forestfield was consented aviation. I think that was one of our must-dos is have a property that we could land the plane at home. And amongst other things, but certainly Forestfield fit the bill. We ended up buying into here. We were very fortunate at the time. Pam and Cess Collins, who were the founders of this property, they built another place on the airfield, which meant that their original home or their home was available for sale. So Jane and I jumped at it, we bought it, we bought a manager on the farm, and we moved here. And that was in 2008, I think then, and just loved it.
So what was your involvement initially at that point? Now you stated you bought it from Pam, and that was Pam. Originally her name was Laki, is that right?
Originally, yeah.
And from my understanding, studying her a little bit, and after having the chance to meet her last weekend, love to do a story with her, but she's not available until the first part of May, but nonetheless, she's got an incredible background. Absolutely. Yeah. In aviation. I mean, she's basically an aviation icon here in New Zealand, if not the world. But what was, when she actually developed this strip, or I guess for me, there's how many runways here?
There's 3. Well, there's 6 vectors, so three runways.
3
yeah.
runways, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I filmed that the other day. I flew it and filmed it, and and I was amazed that it seems like it covers pretty much any kind of wind that you might get here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not good at crosswind landings, the
Yeah.
residents on here. We always got a vector which is into wind.
And then the wind,
And
yeah.
so we're a bit spoiled that way, but yeah.
So were you involved at all in the original inception or the original development of the field here?
No, I wasn't. No, Pam. It started in 1988. Obviously, we bought into it 20 years later.
Okay.
It was well and truly consolidated then, you know, and all as we've had to do is to carry on their philosophy, I guess. Jane and I really liked their philosophy towards aviation and towards their mission statement as such, you know, which was really to put back into aviation what they got out of it.
So that was their mission statement, was just that?
Yeah, it's about to put back and give the opportunity for people just to fly and have a cup of tea. Don't worry about all this landing fee business, which is, you know, on commercial airfields now, where, you know, you might bypass one because it's got expensive landing fees. Seth, when he was asked, you know, what's the landing fee at Forestfield? He said, so, no landing fee, just want your time, come and have a cup of tea.
So this field, much like Oxford and some of these other ones, it is a private field, but yet the public is still welcome. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically, we welcome particularly Canterbury Aero Club. You know, there's an aero club that we've been affiliated. That's where we learnt. Pam learnt there. Pam was an instructor there. I learnt there. I was never an instructor or anything, but and they use this as an alternate airfield for them to, if the students, as they go, you know, it's nice for them to go to another place where they don't become really familiar with their own circuits and come out here and have a challenge.
Yeah.
And yeah, we love seeing them. Yeah. We've got a designated number of movements. We like to keep it reasonably well up there so that the residents know that it is an airfield. There's obviously changes in the local residents as they buy and sell houses. We like to make sure that the aeroplanes are about, they know it when they buy it.
Right.
We don't want to suddenly have a whole lot of movements that happen. I think what the heck's happened.
Yeah, but people complaining about airplane noise at an airpark.
Yeah, exactly. And no, the residents are extremely good. You know, both the residents on the airfield, obviously they help subsidise all this because it costs to run an airfield. And the idea is that we're not out of pocket. Right. So, you know, so long as our costs are covered and we contribute, obviously we're part of it, you know, we contribute to the costs for ourselves. And that helps.
Now, who actually is in charge of, or maybe that's the wrong term to use, but who actually does the maintenance or the groundwork as far as keeping these runways like they are? I mean, they're immaculate and groomed, if you will. Who's responsible for that?
Well, my wife and I, Jane and I, yeah, we do all that, don't we, Jane? And it's I just love doing it.
That's a labour of love there.
It is a labour of love, and Jane keeps us up to it. She does a lot of walking around the airfield, and she'll say, "Due for a run, due for a mow," and but yeah, it's together we get that done.
What do you see? I guess. From the point that you live here, and it looks, having met a number of the different people that live here that are aviators, what do you see for the future?
We'd love to see it continue. It is consented. It is getting rarer and rarer to be able to get consent to have these live-on airfields. We'd love to see it taken on by another individual. So we'll keep assessing it as we get older. When it becomes too much for us, which it will at some stage, we'll hopefully, someone within the airfield may attach the runways to their residence. So all the houses on the airfield are attached to the runway in some way or another in the frontage. So at the moment, obviously, the runway is owned by us. It's attached to our title. It could be, hopefully, with council consent, attached to anyone else who wants to take it.
What, with regards to, are almost all of the homeowners here pilots and have airplanes, or yeah? Is that a prerequisite in purchasing or not?
Not as such. No. So if someone wanted to sell their house to someone who wasn't a pilot, they're free to do that. So far, everyone's been very good in that they have kept the ethos of the airfield going by having an aviator on it. But yeah.
Well, I think too with regards to that, the weekend that you had here, well, I guess it was last weekend or weekend before last.
Yeah.
Your barbecue, your open hangar door barbecue fly-in sort of situation, that was incredible, and it reminded me the way at home, the way it used to be, if I may say that. And there's areas where it still is, but not like what it was. Our airport has gotten so big, so busy, whereas we used to have a lot of different builders, like myself and others. And on a Friday night, we'd have a barbecue, and everybody just get together, we chit-chat, and address some issues that maybe we needed to bring up to the airport board and so forth. But that has pretty much gone away, which is unfortunate. I've enjoyed the opportunity to meet at your last barbecue there, many different pilots and different builders, and that's the part of aviation that, for me personally, that I miss.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to be able to do that, and I want to thank you for that opportunity. And I want to thank you for this opportunity, Duncan.
Thank you so much.
Absolute
Joe.
pleasure.
All the best. It's great to see people like you and to get overseas perspective of what's going on.
Well, we try,
Yeah.
But thanks again. I appreciate the time. Thank you.